If there is one school that has gotten endless praise for developing at the wide receiver spot, it is the Ohio State Buckeyes. They've produced first-round pick after first-round pick the last few years, and a lot of that is due to their offensive coordinator, Brian Hartline, who has just been able to find the right guys. Except, let's not talk about 2022. That is the one season in which Ohio State staff completely missed, as they signed 4 blue-chip recruits, and none of them did anything. One of them is at UConn now, one is at Colorado State, one is at UAB, and one is at Cal. All 4 of these guys ended up being complete busts for the Buckeyes, and everyone just wants to forget that 2022 wide receiver haul. In today's video, we're going to talk about just that, as we're going to go through the 4 blue-chip wide receivers that Ohio State signed, and talk about what happened to them, why they were so hyped up to begin with, and where they are now. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Ohio State's awful 2022 wide receiver class. Okay, so the first guy we need to talk about is Kojo Antwi. Him and his family moved to the United States by way of Ghana when he was just a kid, and then they would grow up in the state of Texas. He said he grew up watching Texas A&M, and Johnny Manziel was the first player to catch his eye. He ended up modeling his game after Julio Jones, and eventually once he got to Lambert High School in Georgia, he blew up. He was a crazy athlete, and he had 30 scholarship offers and announced a top 8 of USC, Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, Florida, Texas A&M, South Carolina, and Oregon. He said he was considering both football and academics in his decision, and he wanted to get a good education. He grew up in Ghana, went to Texas, and then went to Lambert High School in Georgia, and his recruitment would come down to the Ohio State Buckeyes and Alabama Crimson Tide. He loved what both schools were doing, but once he went on a visit hosted by Emeka Egbuka, he decided to commit. This was a huge get, as he was a national recruit, as he had 20 touchdowns in his career and 121 total catches for nearly 1,900 yards. The guy was an absolute star, and he said his goal was to win the Blitnikoff. According to 24/7 Sports, Kojo Antwi was a 4-star recruit, the number 19 wide receiver, and the 115th best player in the class of 2022. While he was the lowest ranking of these 4 guys, he sort of had a high ceiling. Unfortunately, he would play 3 total seasons at Ohio State from 2022 to 2024, but would only play in 12 total games. 5 of those would come as a true freshman, and his 1 catch in his whole career at Ohio State was in 2024, but he did also play a little bit on special teams. Obviously, there was a logjam at Ohio State, and Kojo was just never able to get on the field. He was the last of these 4 guys to transfer away from the program, and he has since signed with Colorado State. He's hoping to be a starting receiver for the Rams in the Mountain West this fall, and maybe he'll follow in the footsteps of Torrey Horton Jr., who is a receiver who was just drafted from Colorado State. Who knows, but unfortunately Kojo Antwi was a bust. Our second guy was a receiver by the name of Caleb Brown. He ended up coming out of St. Rita High School in Chicago, and for some reason that city doesn't produce that much football talent, but Caleb Brown was next up. In 2021, he was a running back for St. Rita, but then he would make a move to wide receiver. Eventually, the 4-star recruit chose Ohio State over Alabama, Florida, Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State, and a dozen other Division I programs. According to 24/7 Sports, Brown was a 4-star recruit, the number 13 wide receiver, and the 79th best player in the class of 2022. He was a huge addition to Ohio State's receiver room, and that's the thing, he was completely new to playing receiver. He ended up making that switch from running back to wideout, and he said, quote, "That's why I say this is a huge learning experience for me. The transition was one of the toughest things I've had to face, making that transition and then training my body to be like a receiver rather than a running back." Caleb Brown would not be the first Buckeye to transition from running back to wide receiver, as former Ohio State players like Paris Campbell and Curtis Samuel both did it before him. And maybe he was next in line? Well, that would not happen. In 2022, Caleb Brown had 1 catch for 5 yards, and he also played on special teams, appearing in 5 total games. After the season was over, he would decide to enter the transfer portal, and his reasoning for transferring away from the Buckeyes was plain and simple. He said, quote, "Going into the transfer portal, my reason for leaving was just how stacked we were. The 2 boxes I wanted to check were quarterback stability and a place where I could work for a spot and play immediately. So those boxes were pretty much checked, and it was an easy decision for me to leave." He said he learned a lot from Marvin Harrison, Emeka Egbuka, and Brian Hartline in just his 1 year at Ohio State, and he would decide to transfer to another Power 5 school. He'd visit Iowa City 2 days after going into the portal, and he would commit to Iowa. He played 27 total offensive snaps at Ohio State, and hopefully he could do a little bit more at Iowa. In his first season with the Hawkeyes, he's actually really solid as he caught 22 passes for 215 yards and 1 touchdown. That's not bad for an Iowa receiver, especially for a guy who was hoping to develop a little bit more. But ahead of his second season with the Hawkeyes, he was arrested in June of 2024 on OWI charges and possession of a fictitious license. He was suspended for their opener against Illinois State, and this was sort of the downhill moment for him. After just a month of college football, he would put his Iowa career to an end as he announced that he'd be redshirting and then transferring away. He played in 3 games for the Hawkeyes in 2024, catching 1 pass for 18 yards against Troy. He had now flamed out at 2 different schools, and he'll be headed to his 3rd college program this fall as he transferred over to UAB. I have no idea if UAB has a good history of producing receivers, but the fact that I can't really name one in recent memory says a lot, and hopefully he can fix things there, but unfortunately, he will also go down as a bust. The 3rd guy we need to talk about was the most highly regarded, and that was Burton III. Coming from a dad who played football at Syracuse, he eventually became a Texas high school football coach and passed his love of the game on to his son Caleb. While at Del Valle High School, he became a 5-star recruit and a top 40 player early on, a full offer sheet from every team in the country. During his sophomore season in 2019, Burton caught 51 passes for 882 yards and 12 touchdowns and became the guy. As I said, he had a full offer sheet and he decided to commit to Ohio State. At the time, he was ranked as the #1 receiver in the nation and the 10th best prospect in the 22 class. As I said, he ended up playing at Del Valle High School, but then his dad accepted a job at the prestigious Lake Travis School. Bo Edmondson was his quarterback at the time, who was a blue chip recruit, but unfortunately, Bo would not throw him any passes his junior year as he would tear his ACL. He missed the entirety of that season, and this was extremely difficult for him. The last time Ohio State got a Lake Travis wide receiver, they got Garrett Wilson, so they're hoping Burton could be the next in line. Ultimately, he'd spend all of his junior season recovering from that injury and would only play 8 games as a senior. He caught just 25 passes for 410 yards and 8 touchdowns, and it took him longer than expected to recover from that knee injury, but he finally found his form. In total in high school, Burton had over 100 catches for 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns, but as I said, that knee injury would sort of put him on a different trajectory. Gabe Brooks, a recruiting scout, still thought he was a future first-round pick and compared him to Jerry Jeudy. Many projected Burton to be next in line, but he would just have to sit behind JSN, Julian Fleming, Emeka Egbuka, and Marvin Harrison before he would make a tremendous impact for them. According to 24/7 Sports, Burton was a 4-star recruit, the number 10 wide receiver, and the 71st best player in the class of 2022. Unfortunately, his time at Ohio State would be very short, as he barely got on the field, and just like a couple of these other guys, he decided to transfer pretty quickly. He went in and out of Columbus in a hurry, and then decided to transfer to Auburn. This came before the 2023 season, and the Tigers desperately needed a couple of big-time playmakers and guys who could move the needle for Hugh Freeze. But he had a pretty small role in Auburn's offense in 2023, only finishing with 16 catches for 226 yards. He would then appear in just 1 game for the Tigers in 2024, catching 2 passes in their win over Alabama A&M. Many thought he'd be a huge part of their rotation in 2024, but with the Keandre Lambert-Smith, Cam Coleman, and a concussion that happened to him, it just did not go as planned. He got limited playing time on the field and would decide to enter the portal for the second time like Caleb Brown, and now he will transfer over to UConn. Sure, UConn had a good season last year, but this is not where we expected Burton to be. Just a few years ago, he was a 5-star recruit, a top 10 player in his class, and was compared to Jerry Jeudy. Now he'll be lucky to even have a good season at UConn, and the NFL seems out of reach, but who knows. Burton was probably the biggest bust on this list, but I think injuries are honestly to blame here. And last but not least, the last of these 4 guys was Keon Graves. Graves was different than the other 3 guys on this list, as he did not start out as a blue chip recruit immediately. Eventually, he arrived at the prestigious Chandler High School in Arizona, and he played so well that the coaches pulled him up to varsity for the playoffs. In 13 games, Graves caught 48 passes for 883 yards and 6 touchdowns. He was originally at Inland Empire High School in California, and he was a quarterback. That move to receiver and that transfer to Chandler changed his life, and in July of 2021, he really started to blow up. He had gained 17 total offers from schools like Ohio State, Texas, and USC, as well as the in-state schools in Arizona and Arizona State. At the time, he really liked what Kevin Sumlin was building, and in 2020, he committed to Arizona over offers from ASU, Michigan State, and Miami. But he made it clear that he was going to keep his recruitment open due to everything going on in the world and how easily things could change. His head coach said, quote, "Keon Graves is one of the top playmakers in the nation." 2 days after winning a state championship, though, he changed his course as he decommitted from Arizona. The firing of head coach Kevin Sumlin played a huge role in this, and he decided to do something better. Before his senior season, he was getting a ton of hype, as he had big-time quarterback recruit Mikey Keene as his quarterback, and after a couple of good seasons, he was now considered a top 100 recruit. Brian Hartline then came in and gave him an offer, and everyone crystal balled him to commit to the Buckeyes. As a senior, he caught 21 passes for 388 yards and 4 touchdowns, but would have to end the season early due to an injury. He ended up committing to Ohio State, and according to 24/7 Sports, he was a 4-star recruit, the number 8 receiver, and the 63rd best player in the class of 2022. He was a late riser and someone who flipped, and he was unlike the other 3 guys ahead of him. He arrived at Ohio State hoping to be the next big thing, and he worked with Emeka Egbuka each and every day and tried to get better and wasted no time. Unfortunately, he would not see the field much either, as he played in just 2 games for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and his lone catch came in a blowout win over Toledo, and it was for a grand total of 2 yards. Then, in 2023, he did not see the field at all, as he recovered from an injury that would cause him to be in a boot for the entire season. He ended up having 2 catches in their spring game, but with guys like Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, and Jaden Ballard already being in the lineup for Ohio State, and with Jeremiah Smith also leaping him in the spring, he would transfer in the spring window before the 2024 season. This would definitely put him behind the 8 ball, but luckily he got a couple of Power 4 offers and decided to choose Cal. He did not become a top-end weapon for Fernando Mendoza, as he only ended up having 2 catches for the Golden Bears, and now enters 2025 as a depth piece for them. Yeah, Graves was also a bust for Ohio State, and all 4 of these guys were. They all came in with a lot of fanfare, they're all hoping to be the next great receiver, and the next hidden gem found by Brian Hartline. Unfortunately, none of these 4 guys panned out. 3 of them are at Group of 5 schools, and Ohio State fans just wish to forget that 2022 receiver class. But what do you guys think? If you're an Ohio State fan, what went wrong with these 4 players, and what's another big-time recruiting class that I could take a look at from your school? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.